When I was about 10, my family moved from High Wycombe to London for better opportunities.
And it seemed like a big adventure, and the house seemed huge.
And certainly for the first time, we had a front room, which wasn't the bedroom, and where you didn't have suitcases planked on top of the wardrobe.
One moment it was bare floorboards and bare walls, and the next moment in my memory, it was this ornate, fragrant, spotlessly clean place that I could only visit under parental supervision, generally either on Sundays after church or when big people came to visit.
What is, I think, amazing is that many of these houses, as you can imagine, that West Indian families at this stage could afford, are very small. But they still designate a space which is not packed out with people, and where there are distinct rules as to when the whole family goes in there and when they don't.
At that time, it wasn't a lot of people who have that. So there's a lot of people still living in the one room. So it was a bit posh.
It was so special to a West Indian because we used to that small little room. And when you get a different room that you could put things in and entertain people, it was a big achievement for us.
Because you'd been living in this one room for years, and then you get to this house where you have this marvelous spare space, a front room, and you immediately begin to think of all the things you can do in it.
Certainly for my parents, there were moments when I looked, through my sort of child's eye and saw them, just relishing the fact that they'd kind of arrived here and the fact that they'd kind of worked, essentially their fingers to the bone and achieved something. And there they were in their front room, and they're essentially, English people in their castle, essentially.
But as the second generation grew up, it wasn't only their own front rooms that they were curious about. They were starting to come into contact with a white world and all its strange habits.
Remember when we were in school, you were my playmate.
You'd be at school and you'd hear English friends kind of answering back to their parents. In a West Indian black hole, you couldn't do that because you wouldn't have no teeth left.
I went to grammar school in Doncaster, and I was the only black girl in the school, so I had a wide range of white friends. And what was quite interesting, when they came to my home, I was allowed to take them into the front room.
We were going out, and this particular friend was white. We were going to another friend of ours who was black, and we arrived at my friend's home, and him not knowing, walked into the front room and sat down. And I sort of thought, gosh, you just don't do that. You just don't walk into someone's, especially with his mother being in there, and just sit down uninvited. And she said to him, do you mind getting up? And she made him stand up again and did not allow him to sit down again, which made it even worse. So there he was, just kind of stood up, in this front room, sort of thinking, Christ, who are these people?
Love thine.
Growing up, we kind of expected that, there were just going to be white people on television forever. But when they started to bring out black characters and black sitcoms, almost an alarm to the whole house. Really, it's like an alarm. Black people on television, the whole house would come running down to sit in the front room and watch black people on television.
I'm not the one who's moving in here. Who is moving in here then?
Mr. Bootham, your new neighbour.
Bloody no.
We enjoyed it. We didn't even realise that when we look back how politically incorrect they were. But we were just so glad to see black characters sounding like us, or even just looking like us.
Looking back now, people say, oh, that's a racist, programme. But I didn't know anyone who didn't like Love Thy Neighbour. We all thought it was funny. I remember at school people would come in and quote lines from it.
White man! Perish!
And to be honest, for some of the stuff that was happening outside in the real world, Packy bashing and, Enoch Powell and stuff like that, Love Thy Neighbour was fairly inoffensive.